Book 1, Chapter 19, A Score to Settle. Sagran's weary body hung over his wife. He hailed her, wishing he could breathe life back into her mortal body. Laying her limp torso back on the ground, he stood and wiped the tears from his face. He walked over to where the rider stood. "I want to ride with you, my son and me." Gilamnza was quite emphatic. "You're angry, and rightly so, but that does not mean that you should ride with us. We're on a mission from the king. The riders of this mission have been chosen." He walked off to deal with other matters, considering the issue closed. But there was something about that Amase that Gilamnza couldn't put his finger on, and he wished Windsor was with him to shed light on the boy. Understanding all too well the pain of losing a wife, Osney patted him on the shoulder and tried to console him. "My wife died a few years ago." He could still see her in his mind, her long brown woolly hair and brown eyes. "I know it's tough," he said. Over the next 9 days, the riders did what they could to console the grieving, bury the dead, and rid the camp of the remaining invader warriors and help establish some order in the camp. The men of the village who were able assisted the riders in digging graves, giving the deceased a proper burial. Sagran buried his beloved wife under the large ash tree where they had their first kiss. The riders assisted in resurrecting the village. They secured food, gathered weapons for the village people, and doctored the sick. Osney and Sagran became good friends, finding a common ground in their losses. On the 10th day, the riders said goodbye to their new friends. "May I ask, where are you going, and what is this mission?" Sagran was curious. "We are going to the land of Shikadesh," Gilamnza answered, not wanting to give up too much. "Shikadesh," explained Sagran. "I didn't think the immortals allowed anyone into the land." "We have no choice but to try," explained Cosby, feeling more comfortable and confident among the group. "We will appeal to the graciousness of the king," said Osney. "Well, let me ride with you. Darvan and I have a little history." "I have an old score to settle with him myself," said Sagran. "We all have a little score to settle with him," said Quadar. "What's yours?" A stirring swelled within Navi as he listened to the man tell his story. But as the man spoke, Navi couldn't shake the mysterious aura found within the eyes of Amase. There was something about the boy that captivated Navi, but he couldn't put his finger on it. "Years ago," Sagran began, "when I was just a boy, warriors in cahoots with dark riders took over our village. They ransacked our village and murdered many of my people. We were reduced to slavery. Our feet were shackled and our hands were forced to work until they bled. Their strategy was to beat us down first and then to offer us a way out. They offered us hope if we would become one of them. Of course, it was false hope. Anyway, I had been working in the fields and was walking home when I saw the dark warriors, Quadarists. I hid behind a tree and watched as they murdered my family. My parents said they would die slaves before they would join forces with their dark works." The rider answered, "Then so it will be. Your wish is granted." And right there, they murdered my parents and 7 of my siblings. But one brother Naka chose to follow the riders of Quadar. From behind that tree, I watched as my brother rode off with them. I yelled out, "No, Naka, don't do this. Don't go with them." I knew he heard me because he looked back and then rode off with them anyway. I know he only joined them out of fear. After this, there was much confusion in the village. I saw it as a chance to escape. So I ran away and lived in a cave just over those mountains. He pointed to the mountains rising east of them. My village then was on the other side of that mountain. He turned to point to another mountain. Later, I began to hunt in various parts of the area. That's why I know this land so well. I fought wild animals with the sling and bow. Then, one day, I was wandering in the forest. I heard a girl screaming. I ran to see what was the matter. 2 men had her. My wife, I mean. We fought and I overcame them. They ran away and I took her back to her family. When they found out I was living in the forest, they insisted that I come and live in their village. That is how I ended up here. Sagran paused for a moment and then continued. You know, at one time my brother and I were best friends. But a change slowly occurred to him while we were enslaved. He grew angry and bitter. He would say things about wishing he had the upper hand. I would remind him that as bad as our plight was, it was still better than to be a slave than to be the slave driver. At least our hearts weren't black. I encouraged him to believe that it would not always be like this, that one day we might be free. I guess I never convinced him. Now, with Nadine gone, I must fight. The kingdom of Shai-Kadesh is immortal because darkness has not penetrated its walls or its people. It is the darkness that has brought destruction, and I have vowed to fight that darkness. He turned again to Gilamnza and the rest of the riders. I want to ride with you, me and my son. I know the woodland region in this land very well. You said you are meeting some friends at the tomb of Murdorf. Yes, answered Navi, Windsor and other riders. Who's Windsor? Asked Sagran. He's a friend of ours. He remembers the lands when they were all immortal, Gilamnza said. You're joking. Sagran was clearly impressed. That's thousands of moons ago. But wait, I've heard legends about a man, an old prophet, but I thought they were just that, legends. Well, there are a few legends associated with Windsor, but I assure you that there is plenty of truth to many of them. Gilamnza looked at Navi for clarification, the prophet nodding his head in agreement that he too felt that the two men should ride. Well, you'll be meeting Windsor soon, confirmed Gilamnza. I will. If you're going to ride with us, then you'll meet him with us at the tomb of Murdorf. You mean we can ride with you, said Sagran, his voice growing excited. Well, are you prepared to be servants of the immortal king and willing to die for him? I am, Sagran and Amase answered simultaneously. Sagran's story and his genuineness had convinced Gilamnza. Well, let's ride, he said, tossing each of them a sword. Here's a splendid dragon for one and a horse for another, said Navi. Quadar rolled his eyes. He had a sneaky suspicion that he was going to have to contend with that beast a little longer than he had hoped. Amase quickly claimed the dragon for himself, having a love for the creatures. I will call her Zethlin. Excitement and a sense of purpose energized them. A long-awaited feeling of destiny was being freshly stirred up, something that had been branded in their consciousness. The daily grind had nearly stripped them of purpose, but now they saw a flicker of possibility. They didn't know what their mission was exactly, but they followed their hearts.